Ethan Parker looked out of the small viewport of the shuttle as it descended toward the surface of Valoria. The planet stretched below him in a mixture of shadows and strange glowing colors. Massive trees with leaves that shone like soft lanterns reached into the sky, and rivers of light blue water wound through the dark valleys. He had never seen anything like it before. Even after studying alien worlds for years, Valoria felt different. It was alive, almost as if the planet itself was watching him. He tightened his grip on the railing as the shuttle landed with a soft thud. The engines hummed and then went silent. The airlock opened, and the alien scent of Valoria drifted in. It was sweet but sharp, a mixture of flowers and something he could not name. Ethan stepped out carefully, letting his boots sink into the soft, glowing moss that covered the ground. He felt a shiver run down his spine, part excitement, part fear. "Stay close," said Marla, the shuttle pilot, her voice calm but firm. She had been with him on many dangerous missions, and he trusted her instincts. "We don't know what's out here yet." Ethan nodded. "I know, but I need to see the heart of this forest. The readings show something unusual." Marla shook her head, but she followed. The forest around them was quiet, almost too quiet. Birds or creatures might be hiding, but Ethan could not see or hear them. Only the soft glow of plants guided their way. As they walked, Ethan noticed subtle movements. Shadows moved between the glowing trees, too quick to see clearly. He paused and looked around. "Do you see that?" he whispered. Marla followed his gaze but shook her head. "Probably nothing. Keep moving." They continued deeper into the forest. The trees grew taller and the light from the leaves became brighter. Ethan's instruments began to beep softly. Something in the environment was affecting them, but he couldn't tell exactly what. He felt a strange pull, like the planet itself was calling him. Suddenly, a soft rustling came from above. Ethan froze. A figure moved between the branches. It was humanoid, with pale skin that almost glowed in the dim light. Its eyes were sharp and bright, reflecting the forest light. The creature's hair was long and black, flowing like a river. Ethan took a careful step forward. "Do not move," a voice said. It was soft, but firm, almost musical. Ethan stopped immediately. The figure dropped from the branches, landing silently on the moss. 4 more appeared behind her, each equally beautiful and strange, with the same glowing eyes and pale skin. Ethan's heart raced. He had studied alien species before, but nothing like this. They were humanoid, yes, but their presence was dangerous. Their bodies were strong and graceful, and their eyes were fixed on him in a way that made his skin crawl. I am Ethan Parker," he said slowly. "I come in peace. I am a scientist. I mean no harm." The figure in front stepped closer. She looked him over carefully, her eyes narrowing. "A human," she said almost to herself. "You smell different." Ethan blinked. "Different? How?" "You are special," she said, tilting her head. "Your blood calls to us." The words froze Ethan in place. He had read about alien predators, but nothing had prepared him for this. His instincts screamed at him to run. But he also felt an odd curiosity. The woman, the leader by her stance, did not attack. She only watched. Marla stepped forward. "Ethan, we should leave. Now." The leader shook her head. "No, he belongs to us now." Before Ethan could react, the other figures circled him, keeping a careful distance. Their movements were silent yet precise, as if they had done this many times before. Ethan realized they were testing him, watching for fear, strength, and reaction. He could feel it in the way their eyes studied him, calculating, powerful. I don't understand," Ethan said. His voice shook slightly. "Why me?" The leader, who had introduced herself as Leora, spoke softly. "Your blood is rare. It carries something ancient. It calls to us even from the stars. That is why we know you are here." Ethan swallowed hard. I am just a human. I am not dangerous." Leora smiled faintly, a motion both terrifying and beautiful. "Danger is not what you are. You are different. That is enough." He realized then that he could not fight them. He did not have the strength or the speed, but something inside him refused to give up. Humans were weak in appearance, yes, but they were clever. They adapted. They survived. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. One of the other Luravans, a woman named Mara, stepped forward. She examined his hands, his arms, and even the small devices he carried. "He is clever," she said quietly. "I can see it in him. He thinks fast. He could be useful." Ethan tried to stay calm. "Useful? I am not part of your world. I belong to mine." Leora tilted her head, studying him carefully. "Perhaps your world has value, too. Perhaps you have something we do not see yet." Marla tried to intervene, but Ethan held up a hand. "Let me handle this," he whispered. For what felt like hours, he and the Luravans stood there, studying each other. He could sense their strength, their speed, their intelligence. But he also sensed a strange respect forming. They were predators, yes, but they were not cruel without reason. They followed instincts, and Ethan knew he had to show that humans had instincts too, ones they could not ignore. Slowly, Ethan reached into his bag and pulled out a small analyzer device. He began to examine the glowing moss and the strange plants around them. Mara watched him closely. "What is he doing?" she whispered to Leora. "He is curious," Leora said. "That is good. Curiosity is strength. We will see if he can survive here." Ethan continued working, moving carefully but confidently. He talked to them softly, explaining the readings and what he found. "This moss gives off light," he said. "It has energy, chemical energy that could power small machines. It could be important for life here. I need to study it more." Leora stepped closer. "You do not fear us?" Ethan shook his head. "I respect you. I do not fear without reason. That is human nature. We are not the strongest, but we endure, we adapt, we survive." For a moment, the Luravans were silent. Then, slowly, Leora nodded. "Perhaps you are stronger than we thought." Ethan felt a strange relief, but he also knew this was only the beginning. Valoria was not safe. The Luravans were powerful, and the forest itself held dangers he could not imagine. Yet for the first time, he also felt something else: acceptance. Somehow, the alien women had acknowledged that he was more than just a weak human. "You will come with us," Leora said finally. "We will show you our world. You will learn from it, and we will see if you truly belong." Ethan hesitated, thinking of Marla, the shuttle, the mission, but he knew he had no choice. This was part of being human, facing fear, taking risks, and proving oneself. He nodded slowly. "I will go with you." The Luravans moved silently, guiding him through the glowing forest. Ethan noticed how they communicated without words, their eyes and subtle gestures conveying more than any language could. He realized that understanding them would be as much a test as surviving the predators of Valoria. As they walked, the forest seemed to change, shadows shifted, and strange sounds echoed in the distance. Ethan's heart pounded, but he also felt a strange calm. The Luravans were not harming him. They were curious, cautious, and powerful, and for some reason they had chosen him. Finally, they reached a cliff overlooking a valley bathed in soft blue light. In the distance, he could see structures built into the trees, homes, towers, and bridges made from living wood that glowed with energy. The Luravan stopped and looked at him. "This is our world," Leora said, and you are part of it now, whether you like it or not. Ethan looked out over the valley. It was beautiful, dangerous, and alive. He realized then that being human meant more than just surviving. It meant learning, adapting, and proving oneself in a world that was not made for him. And somehow, against all odds, he had the chance to do just that. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, following the Luravans into the heart of their world, ready for whatever came next. Ethan followed Leora and the other Luravans through the glowing forest. Every step he took seemed to make him more aware of the difference between himself and them. Their movements were silent and smooth, while he stumbled over roots and moss. Yet, despite their power and grace, he could see curiosity in their eyes. They wanted to know what he was, and perhaps why he was still alive. Leora led him to a large tree, its trunk wide enough to hold several people. Carved into the wood were intricate patterns that glowed faintly. "This is our home," Leora said. "You will stay here while you learn. Do not think of it as a prison. Think of it as a place to understand us." Ethan looked around. The interior of the tree was enormous, hollowed out and filled with soft light. Bridges of living wood connected different levels, and strange glowing plants hung from the ceiling. He had never seen anything like it. Even the technology he had studied on other worlds could not compare to this natural elegance. "Where are the others?" Ethan asked. "Some hunt, some guard, some study," Leora said. "We are a society of many tasks. You will see them soon." Ethan nodded. He felt nervous but also excited. Humans survived by learning quickly, and he needed to learn as much as he could. After a moment, Leora gestured for him to sit on a smooth bench carved from the tree. Mara and another Luravan, named Saren, came forward. "We will test you," Saren said. Her voice was calm but firm. "Not to harm you, but to see if you can survive here." Ethan swallowed. "Test me? What kind of test?" "You will see," Leora said. "First a test of mind, then a test of body." Ethan nodded. He had faced challenges before, but never like this. Humans relied on thinking, problem-solving, and adapting. Maybe that was what these Luravans wanted to see. Saren brought forward a glowing orb. It floated in the air and emitted a soft hum. "This is a puzzle," she explained. "You must understand it and activate it. If you fail, it will not harm you, but it will show your limits." Ethan studied the orb. It seemed simple at first, but he noticed patterns in its light. He touched it carefully, and it shifted. A series of symbols appeared. He traced them with his fingers, recalling patterns he had seen in ancient human technology. Slowly, he aligned the symbols. The orb glowed brighter, then stopped. Leora and the others observed him silently. Finally, Mara nodded. "You think quickly. That is unusual for a human." Ethan felt a small surge of pride. Humans were not physically strong like the Luravans, but their minds could solve problems no one else could. This might be his advantage. "Now the test of body," Leora said. She led him to an open area in the tree. The floor was soft but firm, and vines hung from above. "You will climb and navigate through the obstacles. You must reach the top." Ethan looked at the vines and the height. His arms ached already from the climb, yet he knew he could not refuse. Humans endured because they refused to give up. He took a deep breath and started. The vines were strong, but Ethan's grip slipped once. He felt Mara's eyes on him, judging yet not mocking. He adjusted his hold, using careful movements to avoid exhaustion. He moved faster, finding the rhythm in the climb. Halfway up, a branch snapped. Ethan fell, barely catching himself. Pain shot through his hand, but he gritted his teeth and climbed again. Leora watched silently, her expression unreadable. Finally, Ethan reached the top. He looked down, breathing heavily, but a sense of accomplishment filled him. The Luravans nodded. Leora spoke, her voice soft. You endure. That is good. Strength is not only muscle, it is will. Ethan realized then that humans survived in the universe not because they were the strongest, but because they never gave up. That was something even powerful alien species could not ignore. Over the next few days, Ethan learned the ways of the Luravans. They taught him about the forest, the predators, and their own abilities. He discovered that their speed and strength were unmatched, but their instincts could be predicted if one studied them carefully. Ethan's curiosity helped him gain their trust. He repaired small devices that they had long abandoned, showing that humans could combine cleverness with tools in ways they could not. Mara, who had been skeptical, began to smile at him occasionally. Seren, who was quieter, sometimes nodded in approval when he solved problems quickly. One evening, Leora approached him while he was examining a glowing plant. "You are different," she said quietly. "You are not like the other humans we have sensed. You do not fear easily, and your mind works in ways that please us." Ethan looked up. "I try. Humans are not strong like you, but we survive because we learn and adapt. That is our way." Leora tilted her head. "Perhaps that is why your blood calls to us. Strength is important, but cleverness is rare among humans." Ethan felt a strange warmth at her words. He was still afraid, but he also felt respected in a way no human had been before. These alien women were powerful and deadly, yet they had acknowledged his worth. Days turned into a week. Ethan explored more of the forest with the Luravans, learning their customs and observing their society. He discovered that they were not cruel by choice. They were predators because survival demanded it. Yet they also had rules and honor, and they respected those who proved themselves. Ethan found himself thinking about his home, about humans and their world. He realized that being human was not a weakness. It was a strength, hidden beneath fragile skin and ordinary appearance. The Luravans had sensed it in him, even before he did himself. One day, while exploring near a glowing river, Ethan encountered a creature unlike any he had seen before. It was massive, with scales that reflected the soft light and claws that could crush a human in an instant. He froze, realizing that without help, he would not survive. Before he could react, Mara appeared. She moved with lightning speed, striking the creature with precision and control. Ethan watched, amazed. "How did you—" he started to ask. "Do not interfere," Mara said calmly. "Observe and learn. You are human. You survive with mind, not muscle." Ethan nodded, hiding his fear. He watched as the Luravans defeated the creature without effort. Their power was undeniable, but their intelligence was just as impressive. Humans might not match them physically, but they could learn, adapt, and think in ways the Luravans had never considered. That night, around a soft, glowing fire, Ethan spoke with Leora. "I want to understand your world," he said. "Not just the forest or your abilities, but why you live this way. Why you are predators, yet have honor." Leora studied him, her glowing eyes reflecting the firelight. "You ask questions few dare to ask. You see beyond survival. That is why you endure. That is why you belong." Ethan felt a mix of pride and fear. Belong? He was human, small and fragile in comparison to these powerful beings, yet somehow he had earned a place among them. Over the next days, Ethan continued his studies, learning not just about the Luravans, but also about himself. He discovered that humans had abilities the Luravans could not match. His patience, his ability to think under pressure, and his skill with tools made him valuable in ways he had never imagined. The bond between him and Leora grew stronger. She began to trust him, seeking his opinion on decisions, and allowing him to accompany her on hunts, though carefully monitored. The other Luravans, who had been wary at first, started to accept his presence. Even Mara, once skeptical, sometimes offered advice and guidance. One evening, as the twin moons of Valoria rose above the forest, Ethan looked up at the glowing sky. He realized that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a human scientist. He was part of a world he barely understood, among beings far stronger than himself. And yet, he had survived, earned respect, and begun to belong. Leora approached him silently. "You have done well," she said softly. "You endure not because you are strong, but because you are human. That is a rare gift. Never forget it." Ethan nodded. He did not know what the future held, but he understood one thing clearly. Being human was not a weakness. It was a strength, and it had earned him a place among the Luravans. As he lay down that night in the safety of the glowing tree, surrounded by powerful beings who had once seemed his enemies, Ethan felt hope. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but he had survived the first step, and somehow he knew that humanity had a place even in a world as strange and deadly as Valoria. Ethan woke to the soft glow of Valoria's twin moons filtering through the openings in the giant tree. The air smelled sweet and earthy, and the quiet hum of the forest made him feel both calm and alert. He had been here for weeks now, learning the ways of the Luravans, and each day he felt both stronger and more aware of how different he was from them. Leora appeared silently at the entrance of the room, her glowing eyes scanning the chamber. "Ethan," she said softly, "today you will face a new test. It is not about strength or mind alone. It is about your spirit and survival." Ethan sat up and rubbed his eyes. "What kind of test?" he asked cautiously. "You will venture outside the safety of our tree," Leora said. "You will go into the forest where predators roam. Your task is simple: survive, observe, and return. We will watch, but you must rely on yourself." Ethan felt a rush of fear. He knew the forest was full of dangers he could barely imagine. Yet he also understood why the test mattered. Humans survived in the universe not because they were the fastest or strongest, but because they could think, adapt, and endure. "I understand," Ethan said, standing. "I will do my best." Leora nodded. "Good. Mara and Serene will guide you to the edge, but then you are on your own. Remember, you are human. That is your strength. Do not underestimate it." Ethan followed Mara and Serene through the glowing pathways of the forest. They moved silently, their pale skin glowing faintly under the light of the plants. Ethan stumbled once, and Mara's sharp eyes caught him. "Careful," she whispered. "Every step counts." As they reached the edge of the tree's territory, the forest opened into a darker area. The light from the plants grew weaker, and shadows stretched in strange, twisting shapes. Ethan's heartbeat quickened. This was the real Valoria, wild and untamed, where the Luravans did not control everything. "Here," Mara said softly. "Beyond this point, it is your test. We will watch, but we will not interfere." Ethan nodded and stepped forward. The soft moss gave way under his boots, and strange sounds echoed in the darkness. He kept his eyes open, scanning for movement, listening for anything unusual. Not long after he began walking, he noticed a series of glowing eyes staring at him from the shadows. A large predator emerged, its body covered in dark scales, with sharp claws and teeth that glinted under the faint light. Ethan froze. The creature growled low in its throat, circling him. He knew he could not fight it head-on. Humans were not strong enough. But humans could think. Slowly, he reached into his bag and pulled out a small device he had designed. It emitted a soft hum and a pulse of light that moved in unpredictable patterns. The creature paused, uncertain. Ethan moved carefully, guiding the predator away from himself using the device's light. His mind raced, thinking of every tactic he had learned from human survival guides. The creature lunged, but Ethan dodged, rolling behind a moss-covered rock. He realized that humans survived because they adapted to danger, not by avoiding it, but by using it. After what felt like hours but was only minutes, Ethan managed to lead the predator away from his path. He breathed heavily, feeling both fear and triumph. He had survived his first real encounter. As he continued, he noticed another problem. The terrain became rougher, with sharp rocks and thorny plants. He cut himself slightly on one hand but ignored it, knowing he had to keep moving. Then he heard voices, alien voices, not Luravan. From the shadows emerged a group of alien mercenaries, hunters from a nearby star system. They had been tracking the Luravans, planning to capture or eliminate them. Ethan's heart sank. He was human, alone, and completely outnumbered. He remembered what Leora had said. Humans survive with their mind, not muscle. Slowly, he moved closer to the shadows, observing. The mercenaries were armed with energy weapons and looked dangerous, but they also moved in predictable patterns. Ethan quickly formulated a plan. Using his knowledge of the forest, he led them toward a patch of bioluminescent vines. He cut a few with his small tool, creating a trap. When the mercenaries advanced, the vines wrapped around their legs, slowing them down. Ethan darted past, moving silently and carefully. He realized then that humans had a unique ability. While he could not match the Luravans in speed or strength, he could think, plan, and manipulate the environment. That was his power. After several tense moments, he reached a small clearing and paused to rest. The forest was quiet again, but he knew the danger was not gone. He also knew that if he could survive this, the Luravans would respect him even more. Suddenly, a soft rustle came from above. He looked up and saw Leora descending silently from the trees. "You are clever," she said softly. "You survived where others would fail. That is human strength, not muscle, not speed, but mind and will." Ethan felt a surge of pride. I just tried to survive," he said, breathing heavily. "I did what any human would do." Leora smiled faintly. "Few humans would think this way. Few would endure. That is why your blood calls to us. You have spirit." They walked together back toward the safety of the tree, moving silently through the shadows. Ethan felt a sense of accomplishment, but he also understood the truth. Survival was not just about strength. It was about courage, thinking ahead, and never giving up. Back in the tree, the other Luravans gathered around. Mara and Seren looked at him with something like respect. Even those who had doubted him now seemed to acknowledge his place among them. "You faced danger," Mara said softly. "You thought fast. You survived. That is not weak. That is strong." Ethan nodded. "I had to. Humans survive by using their minds and hearts. That is how we endure." Over the next days, Ethan continued to learn from the Luravans. He observed their hunting methods, their communication, and their society. He realized that despite their strength and power, they were not infallible. They followed instinct and tradition, while humans could think beyond instinct. That gave him hope. One day, while exploring the deeper forest with Leora, they came across a group of young Luravans struggling to trap a creature. Ethan quickly assessed the situation and devised a simple trap using the glowing vines and rocks. He demonstrated it to them, and within minutes, the young Luravans captured the creature safely. Leora watched silently, her expression thoughtful. "You teach them in ways we cannot," she said. "That is remarkable for a human. You are not just surviving. You are becoming part of us." Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. To be accepted by beings so different from humans, so powerful, was something he had never imagined. And yet, he was beginning to belong. The bond between him and Leora grew stronger with each day. She began to involve him in more decisions, seeking his input on simple problems and even larger concerns. The other Luravans, once wary of him, started to follow his lead in small ways, recognizing the value of his human mind. One evening, as they rested on a high branch overlooking the glowing forest, Leora spoke softly. "Ethan, your blood calls to us, but it is not only that. It is your courage, your mind, your endurance. You are human, and that is enough to make you worthy." Ethan looked out over the forest, feeling a sense of peace he had never known. He was far from home, surrounded by beings far stronger than himself, yet he had survived. He had earned respect, and he had begun to belong. I don't feel worthy," he admitted quietly. "I am just a human. I'm not strong like you, not fast like you, not powerful." Leora smiled faintly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Power is not only in strength. Power is in will, in mind, in endurance. Humans endure where others would fail. That is your strength, Ethan. Never forget it." Ethan nodded, feeling the truth in her words. He understood now that survival in the galaxy was not just about muscle or speed. It was about courage, intelligence, and the will to continue, no matter the odds. That was human strength. That was what had earned him a place among the Luravans. As he lay down that night, surrounded by beings who had once seemed alien and dangerous, Ethan felt hope. The forest hummed softly around him, alive with creatures and energy, and he knew that the challenges ahead would be many. But he also knew that being human was enough. It had carried him this far, and it would carry him further. Tomorrow, he thought, would bring new tests, new dangers, and new opportunities to prove that humans could survive, endure, and even thrive among beings far stronger than themselves. And he was ready.